Have you ever seen joy that comes after many seasons of sorrow? This story will make you hold your child tight and whisper, God protect my child. In the city of Ibadan, there lived a woman named Moranke, a hardworking fabric seller at Bodija Market. Every morning, before the cock crowed, she tied her wrapper, packed her goods of lace and ankara, and went to the market with a smile. But behind that smile was pain that words could not explain. For 15 long years, Moranke's womb was silent. She tried everything: doctors, herbalists, church vigils, even night journeys to the river for prayers. Her husband had long given up and taken another wife, leaving her alone with her tears. Yet, Moranke refused to curse her fate. Each night, she knelt and prayed, God, just one child. Even if I must suffer all my life, give me one. Months later, her belly began to swell. The neighbors whispered, some in joy, others in jealousy. After 15 years? Maybe she went to one herbalist, they murmured. But Moranke didn't care. Her joy drowned every rumor. 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby girl, a bright-eyed, smiling child. She named Adura, meaning prayer. The whole street rejoiced. Drummers came out and Moranke danced barefoot in the dust, tears of gratitude rolling down her cheeks. She looked at her baby and whispered, you are my proof that God hears prayers. I will never let anything happen to you. But when a mother's love turns into obsession, even blessings can be dangerous. Years passed like harmattan winds, and little Adura grew into a beautiful bright girl. Her skin shone like morning sun on calm water. Her laughter filled their small home, and every trader in Bodija Market called her Moranke's miracle. Moranke, now a successful fabric seller, poured her soul into her only child. Every wrapper she sold, every profit she made was used to build Adura's future. My child will never lack, she would often say. She will wear what the daughters of kings wears and learn what queens learn. True to her word, Moranke enrolled Adura at Gracefield Academy, one of the most respected schools in Ibadan. It was a place for the children of doctors, lawyers, and politicians. A world far from the noisy market stalls where Moranke began her life. On Adura's first day, her hair was neatly braided, her shoes shone like mirrors, and her lunchbox overflowed with jollof rice and fried meat. Other children whispered, who is she? The teacher smiled and said, that's Adura, Moranke's daughter. From that day, Adura became the pride of the school. She was not only beautiful but also intelligent beyond her years. Whether it was mathematics or any subject, her name always came out first. On every prize-giving day, the headmistress would call her up again and again until the crowd began to chant her name. And her mother? Moranke never came empty-handed though. Each term, she brought expensive gifts for teachers, perfumes, handbags, gold earrings, even wrappers. It is just appreciation, she would say, with a sweet smile. But some teachers wondered quietly, why is she so generous? Soon, Adura became untouchable. Parents pointed to her as the perfect example. Look at Adura, they would say. Does she have 2 heads? One evening, as Moranke watched her daughter sleep, she whispered, no one must ever take her place, not while I am alive. Her voice was soft, but her eyes carried a promise that heaven itself would soon test. For years, Adura Moranke ruled Gracefield Academy like a gentle queen. Her name alone brought smiles to teachers and envy to classmates. But every kingdom, no matter how peaceful, eventually faces challenges. It happened at the start of a new term. That morning, a black SUV stopped in front of the school gate, and from it stepped a girl whose presence turned heads instantly. Her name was Temilade Benson, the daughter of a well-known successful woman who had just moved to Ibadan from Lagos. Temilade was tall, graceful, and soft-spoken. Her uniform fit perfectly, yet there was nothing boastful about her. When she smiled, it wasn't the proud smile of the rich, it was pure and calm. By her second week, Temilade had already taken Adura's place. She impressed every teacher. In mathematics, she solved questions faster than the chalk could write. In English, she spoke like one born for the stage. Even the headmistress said, "This girl is a rare gem." Soon, whispers began to float through the corridors. "Have you seen Temilade's result? She might beat Adura this time oh." Those words stung Adura like pepper in an open wound. For years, she had been the school's golden girl, the one every child looked up to, but now her light seems to dim beside this new star. Still, she tried to hide her jealousy. She smiled when Temilade passed by, even laughed at her jokes. But deep inside, her heart grew heavy. At home, she told her mother, "Mommy, there's a new girl in my school. Everyone likes her." Moronke looked up from counting her sales money. Her smile faded. "What did you say her name is again?" "Temilade Benson." Moronke's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't worry, my dear. You just stay close to her. I will make sure no one takes your place." That night, while Adura slept peacefully, Moronke sat by the window, staring into the dark sky. The crickets sang, but her thoughts were louder. In the corner of her room, hidden behind old fabric bundles, was a small wooden box wrapped in red cloth she hadn't touched in years, not since the night Adura was born. But that night, as jealousy entered her home through her daughter's fear, Moronke slowly reached for it. The wind outside changed direction. It is said that not every smile hides a pure heart, and not every gift comes from the place of love. It was a bright Wednesday morning. The sun sat proudly in the sky, and the students of Gracefield Academy buzzed with laughter. Adura had spent the previous night wrapping a small box with golden paper. Inside was a beautiful silver bracelet shining like morning dew. "Maybe if I give her something nice, she will be my friend," Adura said to herself, forcing a smile. Her mother, Moronke, overheard and nodded approvingly. "Yes, my daughter. Give it to her with love," she said softly. But in her heart, she added words she did not speak aloud. "And may your light shine brighter than hers ever will." At break time, Adura walked gracefully to Temilade's desk. "Hi, Temilade," she said with a polite smile. "I got you something, just a little welcome gift." Temilade blinked in surprise and smiled kindly. "That's so sweet of you, Adura. But my mommy doesn't let me collect gifts from people I don't know very well. I'm sorry." The words hit Adura like cold water. She forced a shaky laugh. "Oh, it's okay, I understand." But deep inside, her pride shattered. It was the first time anyone had ever refused her gift. The whispers of her classmates filled the air, soft, curious. Adura could barely hear the teacher's voice for the rest of the day. When she got home, her mother noticed the change immediately. "What happened, Adura?" Adura's voice trembled. "She refused my gift, Mommy. She said her mother told her not to accept gifts." Moronke's face hardened. She stood slowly, her eyes darkened with something beyond anger. So her mother is the wise one?" she said coldly. "Don't worry, my dear. Be nice to her. Pretend as if nothing happened. I will handle this matter in my own way." That night, when Adura was asleep, Moronke sat before the small wooden box again. She opened it and a strange scent filled the room, a mist of burnt herbs and ancient secrets. She whispered a name softly into the darkness. "Temilade Benson." The candle beside her flickered, and somewhere far away, Temilade began to shiver in her sleep. That night, the city of Ibadan slept peacefully. The moon hung low, and the air carried a strange stillness, the kind that makes dogs whimper for no reason. Inside her small but richly furnished room, Moronke sat before the wooden box again. The candle's flame danced widely, as she mixed palm oil, black powder, and strands of red thread. Her lips moved quickly, whispering words older than her grandmother's bones. On the floor beside her, a folded photograph of Temilade Benson lay inside a chalk circle. Moronke's voice grew stronger. Let their own light fade. Let it return to my child. Suddenly, the candle flickered, and a thin line of smoke rose from the photograph. Moronke's body trembled as her eyes rolled back. The room filled with an airy hum like a swarm of invisible bees. Her spirit left her body quietly, gliding like mist through the window into the night sky. It drifted across Bodija, across the roofs of sleeping homes, until it reached a large compound in Agbowo, where Temilade lived. Inside Temilade's room, Temilade was fast asleep, but her sleep turned restless. Her small hand twitched and her lips quivered. A shadow moved along the wall, tall, silent, and shapeless. It bent over her, whispering words she could not hear. Then it placed an unseen hand on her forehead. Temilade whimpered in her sleep, her breath turning shallow. Far away, Moronke smiled faintly, but in that same instant, Temilade's head began to rustle. Temilade woke up suddenly, sweating, her heart racing. She had dreamt of someone standing beside her bed, a woman whispering her name. But when she turned on her lamp, no one was there. Temilade whispered softly, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper, in Jesus' name, amen," then pulled the blanket around her. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen had just passed through her world. When morning came, Temilade Benson didn't feel like herself. Her alarm rang, her mother called twice, but she could barely lift her head. At school, her friends noticed it first. The once brilliant Temilade, who used to answer every question, now sat quietly, staring blankly at her notebook. When the teacher asked her a simple math question, she gave a wrong answer, something that had never happened before. The class went silent. Even Adura, sitting at the back, looked up sharply. A strange spark of satisfaction flashed in her eyes before she quickly looked away. Temilade's handwriting has changed. Her once neat, careful letters now looked like a child's scribble. When she tried to read her notes, the words seemed to dance across the page. "Are you okay, Temilade?" her friend asked. Temilade forced a smile. "I am fine. Maybe I didn't sleep well." But deep inside, fear had begun to grow. That night, she dreamt again. The same dark room, the same whisper calling her name. She saw herself sitting at a long wooden table surrounded by silent children, all eating from bowls filled with white substance. Every time she tried to stop, a faceless figure pushed another spoon towards her lips. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. When she woke, her hands were trembling, and her bedsheet was wet with sweat. The next day, things grew worse. In class, when she picked up her pen, a sharp pain shot through her hand, as if invisible needles pricked her skin. She gasped and dropped it. The teacher frowned. "Temilade, what is wrong with you?" But she couldn't explain. She didn't even understand it herself. At the back of the class, Adura watched quietly. For a moment, her heart twitched with guilt. But the memory of her mother's words, "No one will take your place," echoed in her mind, drowning the guilt away. By the end of the week, Temilade had stopped answering questions entirely. She forgot simple things, lost focus, and often looked tired. And in the market that evening, while Moronke counted her sales with a smile, one of her customers whispered, "Madam Moronke, have you heard? That new girl, Temilade, is falling behind in school. The brilliant one now." Moronke smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. "Ha, these children of nowadays," she said calmly. "Not everyone can keep up forever now. But when you build your joy on another person's sorrow, you are only planting a fire that will one day burn your own home." By the second week, Temilade Benson was no longer the same child who arrived at Great Field Academy, full of life and promising. Her laughter was gone, her eyes lost their sparkle, and her steps had become slow and unsure, as though something invisible was holding her back. At first, her teachers thought it was stress. "She's still adjusting," they said kindly. But when her test results came out, even the headmistress frowned. Temilade, who used to score 90 and above, had barely managed 35. That evening, her class teacher called her mother, Mrs. Abisola Benson, to school. When Abisola arrived, wearing her usual corporate suit, smelling of car perfume and office air conditioning, the teacher spoke gently. "Madam, please, something is wrong with your daughter. She no longer understands her lessons. Sometimes, she even forgets what we thought 5 minutes ago. Take her home for some rest." Abisola forced a polite smile. "Ah, it's probably just distraction. I'll talk to her." That night at home, Temilade sat quietly at the dining table, pushing her food around her plate. "Temi, eat your food," her mother said sharply. "You need to focus. You used to be my brilliant girl. What is this I'm hearing from your school now?" Tears filled Temilade's eyes. "Mommy, I'm trying, but my head hurts when I read, and when I hold a pen, it shocks me." Abisola frowned. "Shock you? What kind of talk is that? You are just being lazy. Maybe you have been watching too much TV." She snatched the plate away and stormed off. Temilade went to bed quietly, but her heart ached more than her body. That night, the dream came again. The same dark hall, the same faceless figure. But this time, the figure spoke. "You belong to me now." Temilade screamed and woke up crying. Her bedsheet was damp, and her body shook violently. She ran to her mother's room, but Abisola was fast asleep, exhausted from work. The little girl stood there for a moment, helpless, then walked back to her room and knelt by her bed. She whispered a weak prayer she barely remembered from Sunday school. "God, please help me. I don't want to forget again." Far across town, in another room filled with perfume and fabric, Moronke suddenly woke up too. She sat up sweating. The candle by her bedside flickered for no reason. She quickly stood, looked around, then laughed nervously. By the next week, Temilade Benson could barely get out of bed. Her body felt heavy, her eyes dim, and her once bright voice now came out in whispers. Every time she tried to read, her vision blurred. When she held her pen, her hand would twitch as though something invisible controlled her fingers. Her mother, Abisola, finally began to worry. That Monday morning, instead of sending Temilade to school, she drove her straight to Adeyo Hospital. The doctor checked her eyes and her heartbeat, asked questions, and finally smiled politely. "Madam, your daughter is fine physically. She's probably stressed. Let her rest and eat well." Abisola nodded, trying to hide her fear. "But doctor, she's forgetting everything. Even her writing has changed." The doctor shrugged. "It happens sometimes with pressure. Children need time." But deep inside, Abisola knew this was not ordinary. That night, Temilade couldn't sleep again. She tossed and turned around until midnight, when she saw a shadow move across her wall, tall and dark, with no clear shape. She screamed. Her mother rushed in and turned on the light. "What is it?" Temilade pointed, crying. "Something was here. Something was here." Abisola looked around. Nothing. The windows were locked, the curtains still. She hugged her daughter tightly. "It's okay, baby. You're safe." But her heart trembled. The next day, Temilade refused to eat. Her hands shook as if from cold. At night, her voice changed. She began to mumble in her sleep, whispering words no one could understand. One evening, as Abisola sat beside her bed, she noticed something strange. A faint burn mark on her daughter's left wrist, shaped like a ring. She touched it gently. Temilade flinched and whimpered. That was when Abisola's friend, Mrs. Fadeke Phillips, came to visit. Fadeke was known across Ibadan as a prayerful woman, the kind who didn't fear darkness. When she saw Temilade, her expression changed instantly. Ah, Abisola, this child is not sick oh, she's under attack. Abisola froze. Attack? What are you saying? Fadeke shook her head slowly. Someone has tampered with her destiny. Look at her eyes, dull and heavy. Someone is drawing her glory. Abisola's lip trembled. But who would do such a thing? Mrs. Fadake sighed deeply and placed her hand on Temilade's head. This is what prayer will reveal. This battle is not of medicine, it's of the spirit. Then she began to pray. Her voice was steady, powerful, filled with authority. In the name of Jesus, every hand that has stolen this child's destiny, release it now. As she prayed, Temilade began to cough, soft at first, then violently. She leaned forward and vomited a thick white foam that smelled like burnt candles. Abisola screamed, jumping up on her feet, but Mrs. Fadeke didn't stop praying. Out! Release her destiny now! Finally, Temilade slumped into her mother's arms, breathing weakly. The air in the room grew calm again. Fadeke wiped her forehead and said quietly, Abisola, the world is darker than you know. If not for God's mercy, your child would have been gone by now. Don't stop praying, oh. That night, Abisola knelt beside her daughter's bed and cried, God, I ignored the signs. I thought I could handle everything with money. Please, forgive me. Save my child. And far away in Bodija, Moronke woke up with a sharp pain in her hand. The same hand she used for her witchcraft activities. It burnt as though touched by fire. She gasped, clutching it tightly, unaware that her battle had just begun. That night, while Mrs. Abisola Benson and Mrs. Fodake Phillips prayed fiercely in Agbowo, a sudden heat ran through Moronke's right palm, a burning pain so sharp that she screamed aloud. Ah! My hand! My hand! My hand is burning! She rushed to the sink, running cold water over it, but the heat only grew stronger. Her fingers throbbed as if something inside her skin was on fire. She looked down, and there it was, a faint red mark, glowing like hot coal, right in the center of her palm. Her daughter, Hadura, rushed out of her room. Mommy, what happened? Moronke forced a smile, hiding the pain. It's nothing, my dear. Just a little cut. But Hadura noticed something strange. Her mother's eyes looked frightened for the first time. Every time she tried to transform into her witchcraft form, her voice cracked. The candle beside her flickered violently. What is happening to me? She whispered. Then, from nowhere, a cold wind swept through the room, even though every window was shut. Her wooden box, the one she had used for her witchcraft activities, fell open by itself. Inside it, the photograph of Temilade Benson had turned completely black, as if burnt by unseen fire. Moronke gasped and fell to her knees, trembling. What was happening? She cried. There was no answer. Only the sound of her own heartbeat filled the room. Far away in Agbowo, Mrs. Fadeke Phillips continued her prayer. Her voice thundered through the night. Any hand that has touched this child's destiny, let the fire of God consume that hand. As the words left her mouth, Moronke screamed again, clutching her burning hand. She ran to her mirror, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Her reflection flickered like an image inside water, and for a split second, she screamed and fell backward. The candle went out. In the darkness, she heard her own breath and whispered, I only wanted to save my daughter. Not this, please. But it was too late. The morning sun rose over Bodija. Inside Moronke's house, darkness still lingered. Her daughter, Hadura, had woken earlier than usual. Her eyes darted nervously at shadows that weren't there before. Mommy, she whispered, why is the house so heavy? Moronke avoided her gaze. She didn't know how to explain that the darkness she had unleashed was already reaching her own child. Hadura sat at the breakfast table, trying to eat, but every bite made her feel dizzy. Then she felt it, the cold brush of someone unseen pressing against her shoulders. She gasped, nearly spilling her cup of pap. Mommy, there is someone here. Moronke, panicked, waved her hands. It's nothing, my dear. It's just your imagination. But deep inside, Moronke knew the truth. The same force she had used against Temilade was now rebounding. Every act of darkness she had used to steal people's destiny for her daughter has returned home to her. That evening, Hadura's sleep was tortured by visions. She saw herself walking through a dark forest, carrying heavy basket filled with invisible chains. Every step she took, the chains grew heavier. She woke up screaming. Moronke ran in, clutching her daughter, tears streaming down her face. Hadura, calm down. It is just a dream. I promise you, it's just a dream. But it wasn't. Hadura's eyes had changed, glowing faintly, as if reflecting a world beyond the ordinary. That night, Moronke sat alone, holding her burning hand. The pain now constant and unbearable. She whispered into the darkness, God, please forgive me. I never wanted my daughter to suffer. Her once bright and cozy home was filled with shadows that seemed to breathe. Desperate, Moronke collapsed to the floor and whispered, I confess, I have done wrong. I ask for forgiveness, please. Protect my child. Moronke's burning hand slowly cooled, though the ache in her heart remained. The night had fallen over Bodija, but the stars seemed dimmed, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Moronke's house was quiet, yet the air was heavy, vibrating with unseen energy. Outside, the wind whispered warnings that only the sensitive could hear. Moronke fell to her knees, tears flowing freely. The darkness that had once obeyed her now turned on her, a mirror of every jealousy, envy, and ambition she had unleashed. That night, the mother and daughter knelt together, praying for forgiveness until the first light of dawn. Never underestimate the power of God. In the days after, Bodija felt different. The marketplace buzzed with normal life, vendors selling yam, tomatoes, and akara. One evening, Adura found herself sitting on the veranda. Her mother joined her, and for the first time in years, they spoke honestly. Mommy, Adura said softly, what do we do now? Moronke's eyes filled with tears. I don't know, my child. The fear that you would not be saved, the fear that you would be forgotten, the fear that the world will not recognize you has now swallowed me. Adura took her mother's hand. I believe God has forgiven us. We need to go to church for deliverance, mommy. Later, Moronke burned the last of her charms, the dark magic dissolving into smoke. She realized that her pursuit of witchcraft has destroyed the one thing she truly loved, her soul and that of her child. One Sunday morning, Moronke and her daughter went to church, and they knelt down in tears, pleading for forgiveness. God, please, forgive us. Forgive me, I have sinned. Forgive me. God has forgiven you, madam. Please, stay away from witchcraft or demonic activities, and you will be free, the pastor said to her. Moronke was very happy. 2 days later, Moronke went back to her business, but to her greatest surprise, all her fabrics were gone. The shop was completely empty. Some women were already mocking her. She was so ashamed and also curious to know what happened to her business. A woman across her shop said aloud, the almighty Moronke, your demonic powers has collapsed. The spirit of every destiny and glory you destroyed has come for you. She hurried out of the market in shame and guilt as people laughed at her. At Gracefield Academy, Adura was now the dullest student in her class. She barely passed her test and exam. One afternoon, she met Temilade and begged her to forgive her and also confessed that everything that has happened to her, her mother was behind it. Temilade ignored her and left. Adura went home in pain and guilt. She told her mother everything. Moronke couldn't stop crying. Months passed Moronke was now unable to pay for Adura's school fees. Adura had to stay at home with her mother. Nobody wanted to associate themselves with her anymore. She was being treated like half-caste. One afternoon, she decided to relocate to a new city and start afresh. Moronke's witchcraft story became lessons for the entire neighborhood. Parents watched their children more closely. They would pray and anoint their children always. And children like Temilade thrived, not just because of talent, but because God and integrity shielded their glory. Some destinies should never be tampered with. Thanks for staying with me till the end of this story. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you do, please don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, I would love to hear your thoughts, and also subscribe to this channel. Turn on your bell notification so you get notified when an interesting and educating stories like this drops. See you in the next video.